All right, welcome everybody. Wellness Wednesdays. It's a Wednesday. It's December 2024, and it's not too cold out. It's a beautiful day. So
I know we are being spoiled, actually.
it's been a pretty mild one so far. So that's awesome. So, anything new and exciting in your world? We get our weekly date time in an hour, and we get to share it with other people who get to watch as well. But
Right.
it's a designated time that we get to spend together because even though we live together and work together in some capacity, we hardly see each other. So this at least forces us to put an hour down to sit and chat about something that we both can relate to. So this works for us. Hope it
True.
working for you guys too, and get to watch and share. Feel free to comment and let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to discuss in a future one. Today we're planning on talking about detoxification, which is an important topic, obviously. We've got some scheduled upcoming ones coming up on different topics. We'll go next week, and then we'll take 2 weeks off for Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll be back starting Wednesdays in January as well. So, schedule is on our website, terraintherapy.com. I think it's slash webinars. There's a menu item at the top too for webinars. You can see the upcoming ones. Register to join us in the future if you'd like to be live with us, or they'll be reposted on YouTube and on our website as well. So, uh,
So,
yeah.
so when you talk about detox, and you know, it's
Wait, who
it's
are
a
you,
huge
by the way?
subject. Who am
I, I forgot to introduce ourselves.
I? Dr. Julia Stevens, and I've been a lifelong health advocate, if you will, just because I've been on a pursuit and of always trying to make myself feel better, really. Like, just kind of, I've always been a sensitive kid with aches and pains and this kind of thing. And so it's kind of got me into, I guess I understood at a young age, like, hey, well, it helps that my family was rich in the chiropractic traditions, but like the power that made the body heals the body. And so, the like, how do you help the body heal itself has been a simple question in my heart for a long time. Um,
True.
but toxins, I get excited about the toxins and toxicity because it's just as simple as if you can help the body take out the trash, you work better. Like our bodies are naturally releasing in the biochemical processes within the cells. Our bodies are all creating waste, and so we're designed to eliminate and take out the trash. And when it's like when everything is going right, um, things go well. And sometimes when there's then roadblocks and hindrances to people eliminating their waste, that can throw the body into a stress process. And then it's not just like the what's going on within the biochemistry of our cells, but then also we are these, miraculous human being vessels. And as we live on this planet, we're exposed to so many things too. I think our water is not just pure H2O, and our foods don't have other things in them and on them to assist in the food process. And like the air, has um, particulates, and just we're exposed to pollution in our air, we're exposed to pollution in our water, we're exposed to even radio and frequency. A lot of times, people who are real sensitive to kind of radio waves get, and all of us to some extent are getting exposed. And then even our pediatric experience here in this country, it's a lot of both vaccines and antibiotics that have their upsides and downsides too. So as humans, we get exposed to a lot of things. And something I learned 20 years ago back in school was that our our largest source of exposure is from our mother. Usually the placenta will concentrate and pass the exposures to her unborn child. And so um, plastics and metals, they can be passed through the generations, 4 or 5 generations.
Yeah, that
So
scares me.
we're logarithmic in our exposure. The flip side of that is we can release it. And there is a, more proactive mamas, there can be a desire to do these, deep cleanses. Take a year, take a year and a half, and really like clean out your sponge before. Now, not many people, not everyone plans on getting pregnant, but there that is a movement that I know of.
I've heard of a few naturopaths who specifically, women are having a hard
Mhm,
time conceiving, will do a real aggressive detoxification protocols, and often with success, and then a
mhm,
conception event. We've seen that a couple
absolutely.
times too. Surprise
Mhm,
babies where people didn't think they could have a baby, and then they're all of a sudden like, "Hey, by the way,
mhm,
I have some news." So that's always
mhm.
kind of exciting when it happens,
Homeopathy, yeah.
especially if, yeah,
Like
usually.
this triad, a detox, release the toxins, build the, well, more than triad, release the toxins, build the nutrition, um, realign the structures for function, um, and then little sparkle spice of little homeopathic, synergize the human systems to work together.
Yeah, they've done some, going back to the in utero exposures, they've done some cord blood tests after the baby's born, and like just about like I think every sample they tested has some of these forever chemicals, like PFAs,
Mm-hmm.
fire retardant chemicals, some other like Teflon-y kind of stuff. Like they're finding all these materials in the cord blood, which is basically making it right to the baby, which is really kind of concerning, an element of modern living that we've sort of gone awry with, that we're exposed to all these things.
Well, and like we're talking about it in 2024, but it was introduced in our environment back in the 80s. So, like, there's,
Yeah.
this is not like a new thing. We're just kind of having awareness because we're watching as all of this stuff kind of comes together. Long story short, I can't see, I freak out because I don't know. I'm a mom. I don't like when you really look at the hard evidence of this stuff, it's
Mm,
not a pretty picture. But that's why I guess I like to double down on focusing on how do you help get it out of you,
sure.
And that's where I get excited about our microbiome. Our microbiome is this collection of bacteria, fungus, virus, stuff that lives in us and on us. And they're actually our protectors. They take the first exposure, the first hit of these different toxic interactions. And even like what's lining our lungs, what's lining our gut. That stuff is there to kind of uh, join arms and keep protect from the human part of us to get exposed. Or that microbiome can be a hot mess and can be turning, a simple exposure into a worse thing, like with these histamine reactions.
Mhm.
So that microbiome can either be your friend or your enemy, and either way, you have to figure out how to dance and make it your friend. Um,
So
to protect you.
what are the main ways that our body gets rid of toxins? When we get exposed to a chemical or a heavy metal or something in the environment, how does our body handle that?
Well, we have a couple different choices on that. So, um, how our bodies get rid of toxins, about 80% of the garbage is eliminated through the bowel. Depends, I guess, if the molecules are water. What? And toxins. Are we talking about like,
It's a big question.
yeah, that's a big question because, stressors from different capacities. Sometimes you just need to go take some deep breaths and let it go. It's more of a,
Emotional toxicity.
yeah, like just a
Sure.
bad thing. But then we have, so our bodies poop out toxins, we pee out toxins, we eliminate through our bowel 80%, we eliminate through our kidneys and bladder system about 15-18%, and then we eliminate through our lungs. Our breath is an elimination, and then we also eliminate through our skin, which is also an elimination pathway. The skin and the breath are a little more of like the overflow valves, and the majority of it's supposed to go, pee and poop. The the bowel and the kidney system work well together in that, like, so we had the fortunate experience of housing colon hydrotherapists in our clinic, a decade ago, and being able to talk to people, professionals who are therapists in helping to like wash out and rebalance the colon, you learn a lot about how the human body restores itself. And by cleansing the body, you can get people to recover very quickly. So I guess that's part of where my love affair with
Mm.
watching people recover by simple cleansing. But listening and picking, remember Dorothy, who was with us a long time ago? She was a
Yeah.
wonderful soul. She was just, it was her passion for decades. And so she knew a lot. And she was talking about how dialysis patients, she could keep people from going as often when they had colonics, and like having big shift in kidney numbers by helping the bowel and vice versa. The So the bowel will do more work if the kidneys need the support. Um, and the body's like a system of systems and it works
Mm.
together. It's very beautiful. On the other side of that, when people have very stubborn skin things, sometimes you can get some real wins clinically by actually looking at and digestive support and then helping recover skin. That's some nice, especially hormonal skin stuff. I mean, that's a no-brainer on that. And then, okay, so then
Mhm.
I think of the bowel as like the garage of a house because it's the large excess, but it's not where all the it's not toxins live in the living room, in the closets, deep, tucked away. So the body will the majority of the movement's happening through the bowel. But then the actual physical sponge of us has blood flow, circulation vessels, and it has lymphatic. Lymphatic is just the fluid in our sponges. And so the toxins are moving through the lymph space to the blood space. And then it's our liver that is filtering the blood and spitting it into the bowel space. And then in the bowel space, it needs to move all the way to the toilet. Our bodies are really, really amazing at recycling. This can be a good thing and a bad thing. And so what can happen, and this is why people will use binders, is when the liver spits out something that it wants to eliminate, if there's sluggishness in the colon as it goes through and the later part of the colon, often those same substance will get reabsorbed and then have to go through the filtration system through the liver again to actually get fully, before it can actually get removed. Hormones do this a lot, like estrogens and
What do you mean by binders?
binders like activated charcoal, psyllium husk, chlorella,
Right.
fiber. When people say eat more fiber, fiber to detox, like specific. A binder is there's a few of them, clays, bentonite clay, that will like bind. People will take in detoxing, people will take some fiber supports to help bind up molecules in the early part of the digestive tract, and then they don't get re-released, so they get held and get moved all the way out into the toilet rather than bypassing getting reabsorbed later in the
Mhm.
colon organ, which then actually just kind of puts more burden on the liver. When people are chronically sick, this is often a way to help people feel better.
It gets people moving
And
from
then
the bathroom.
hormones too, but going to the bathroom more, but then also that binding as like sometimes it's exactly why if someone has like food poisoning, the first thing you want to think of is like activated charcoal. It'll bind up whatever is making them sick inside and get it out of them.
Hmm.
But it's also, you can imagine binders, you would never want to really take a binder at the same time of a medication because it's going to bind up the medication and then you're not getting your full dose of whatever the other thing it is you're taking. So
There are some
timing with
like some
binders.
prescription things that people use, like cholestyramine,
Yeah.
which is a bile salt sequestrant. So basically, when the liver dumps out bile, is its way of detoxing the blood. Then that bile, these prescriptions combine that. They use them.
Yeah,
Usually,
that's a
name brand list
pharmaceutical
is for
binder.
cholesterol removal because that's how the body gets rid of cholesterol too, is through this pathways,
Indeed.
and then yeah, through bile. And then, but if I combine that and then pass it out through the stool rather than reabsorbing, it'll lower people's cholesterol. But there are doctors who will use it for like mold toxicity, or other toxins to kind of bind it. But you can use fibers the same way. But like these are kind of like super fibers because they bind
Hmm.
bile and different things from the liver so strongly and pass it on.
Well,
You have to be
because
careful taking other meds at the same time with them as well. Usually have to take it by itself away from other things. Kind of like
which is always a little bit of a challenge to remind yourself when to do that. But
thank God for
alarms.
phone alarms recurring every day. Make sure you take your vitamins and
Oh
supplements and
my
meds
gosh.
at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And don't hit snooze, or I mean, do hit snooze. Don't hit off. If you don't, because you'll hit snooze, then you'll realize later that day you didn't take your supplements, and they're still there in the.
See, now I connect things with brushing my teeth.
Mm. Whenever you brush your teeth,
It's
you
like
take
when I
your
brush
stuff.
my teeth, oh, take that. You know, if
I,
it's
I
something
have
I
to
have to
set
take.
multiple alarms, like 10 a.m., 10 p.m., whatever, and then
Hmm.
make sure. Yeah, I don't. If I hit off, then it's like I'll forget. I'm like,
Hmm.
dang it! But if I hit snooze and don't hit off until you're actually taking it,
The
because
art of the
and this is not.
snooze.
I'm assuming this is not just a me problem because I've heard so many people over the years say, "I just can't remember to take my vitamins. I can't remember to." I'm like, use your tools. We have these things constantly
I know,
sitting
but for
on.
some reason we think that we just won't, and I don't
Yeah,
know. Like
because our brain, we've got so
brains
many
are
things.
fun.
We got so many things we're focused on that, yeah, missing. Just thinking about taking your vitamins isn't always there. So,
No,
but yeah,
but back to so
kind of
bile.
true.
Bile comes out of the gallbladder. Or no, I'm sorry, it is stored in the gallbladder and it squeezes when we have a fatty meal. But bile is important. Bile is a molecule that both emulsifies, so it's like Dawn dish soap. It makes fat and liquid be able to, I don't know,
Like
emulsify.
micelize, I think is the
Micelize.
fancy chemistry word.
Oh, okay. And then so it allows your body to absorb fat soluble fat nutrients, but then also the bile is how we excrete fat toxins. So, like metals and fat soluble toxins, the fat soluble toxins are the ones that are a little harder for the body to get rid of. And so, when they accumulate, bioaccumulation, you tend to have more correlation with illness. Where the water soluble stuff, we pee off our toxins easier than the fat soluble toxins can get recycled. And so the metals are in this pathway,
And
plastics are
stored a
in this
lot.
pathway, and stored. That's the other thing. They can't stay in our bloodstream, otherwise, we would die. So your body will store it into the fat compartments of the body. And then, say the person's like, oh, I want to lose weight, but they start to feel bad because some of the fat that they're unpacking actually has modern toxins in them. And depending on how potentially harmful the toxins can be, the body will sometimes, I've seen this, and this is my theory, is like they will resist unpacking the fat stores in this human because they're too toxic. Once you start kind of doing some fiber binding, cleansing, detox elimination through the whole body system, then it seems to be that the fat falls off easier. When it's not as toxic.
Yeah, there are some interesting theories out there about the causes of obesity, and one of them being increased toxicity. And we are sort of having an obesity epidemic in the world, in the Western world, and we're also, much higher exposures to toxic chemicals than we've ever had. And there's not a lot of testing of when these things are often not even tested, or if they are, they're very, you know, they're not tested in conjunction with five other chemicals that you're also ingesting when you eat, very highly processed food or breathe in, polluted air or things like. We just don't have a lot of testing data on the synergistic effect of putting so many toxins into a body and different things and what they do when they combine. So one of the things that happens is the body's like, I just got to store this, get rid of it, get it out of my bloodstream. And so yeah, we put it in the fat stores, and we just keep adding and adding and adding to that over time. Sometimes, yeah, I've seen when people go on a weight loss, all of a sudden, like an old rash comes back that they hadn't had in like 10 years. And they're like, I had this a long time ago. And it's like, yeah, I think it's whatever you're exposed to at the time, your body just started packing it away, and now you're releasing it back into the bloodstream. And so you're getting these old symptoms coming back, which is often disconcerting for someone. But from a naturopathic point of view, we kind of like seeing that. We call it like a healing crisis, a symptom that comes up. one doctor, MD, is like, why? How come you guys, when everything goes bad, it's a healing crisis, and when we do something bad, it's a side effect? But
Because we're working with the power of the
exactly.
body.
So, but no, I think that is a healing process. If you get an old symptom coming back after you start, detoxing, that can be a good thing. That you're finally getting these things out of your body that have been maybe low level, causing irritation and inflammation and symptomatic disease processes. So,
Yeah, no, releasing. So, toxicity, also, there's another metaphor out there when you're talking about the immune system. Um, it's also been theorized that the toxicity exposure it is what is can be propagating chronic infectious load. Like the metaphor is um, when there was the garbage strike in New York City, and they basically let the garbage in the early 80s, garbage filled up in the city. And then all of a sudden they had a huge rat problem. And it's like, it's not a rat problem, it's a garbage problem. I've heard this metaphor and story be
mm,
used in different teachings. But like the idea is I believe a lot of our chronic Epstein-Barr, chronic Lyme, chronic mold, chronic, any chronic infectious thing that someone is dealing with, even if they keep getting a cold and the flu over and over, if you kind of pivot and be like, what the heck is going on? How are you pooping? How are you drinking water? And kind of look at them more from like a detox lens, and encouraging elimination and antioxidant support, detoxing the body, it'll help them break the cycle of these chronic infections.
mm,
The immune system is more organized when it's cleaner. The body, the systems of systems and the organs work together. The red blood cells and white blood cells themselves, when you look at the blood, they're more organized in how they communicate and they're not just all clumped up. There's a piece of that.
mm. So specifically, how can we help support the four ways the body gets rid of things? So bowels, we've kind of mentioned, like extra fiber, making sure
Sometimes you just drink fiber and then it's like you've got cement in the middle of
it's
you and you
worse.
just, yeah, you feel
So sometimes
worse.
you need to get something to move things. What
Hmm.
what do you
When it,
usually use for that?
well, from like gentle, there's a lot of things on the market, and there's a lot of things that I've tried in 25 years of watching people. Um, what I really like is this kind of unique magnesium preparation that is, it's kind of like hydrogen peroxide and magnesium together. And so it's a gentle approach to soften and get the bowel to move regularly. There's also the
Is that the oxy
like an
powder?
oxy powder,
And
yeah.
that's on full script, right?
Hmm.
It's
And
the
yeah, well,
manufacturer.
yeah, through the Global Healing Center. And so that's my favorite of choice right now because people can control the dosages very, very well, and it's both for stubborn and not so stubborn. And then also there's like zero toxicity involved with this. So you're not having sometimes people like smooth move tea and different type of teas that are like laxative and herbal approaches can have unwanted side effects and also just not always as effective. The
Mm,
magnesium aspect, what you're doing, this is not a magnesium your body's pulling in as a nutritional source. Instead, what it's doing is it's really not getting absorbed in the middle tube and it's pulling fluids in. So that's just kind of softening. It's a way to hydrate the colon, and then that is causing the elimination to work better
mm,
without kind of making it any more complicated than that. So I appreciate that such a simple product. Usually people have other things going on, and so when you grab at herbal complexes that have a bunch of different stuff, and often the colon doesn't need to be overstimulated. Usually what it is, and so cascara and senna and different herbal laxatives can kind of be stimulating to a sense to the colon, and we are already overstimulated. Like we are stressed out little bodies walking around. So one more kick to the gut isn't like fixing anything. It's more like hydrating the colon. And a lot
I
of
think
times when
that
you
yeah,
just drink water, you absorb it up in your stomach.
mm,
So the slush of stuff, by the time it gets down, is not nearly as hydrated. That's why they talk about like herbal teas or like putting something in your water helps the water solution get a little further down,
Yeah.
but so things you can do, that's just movement. You have to make sure movement's happening to
That's
detox.
primary, probably most
And then
important
to
thing.
balance that microbiome, plants, 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 plants. A little bit of plant in our food makes a huge difference. It's not so much, so just getting a variety of a few plants. And you're looking for 5 a day, but like a little bit of cucumber, some nuts, a little bit of blueberries, some cherry tomatoes, like any little variety of some plants. We tend to get like, I like 3 things and I just eat the same 3 things over and over and over. That is hard on our gut.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to have a little bit of variety that gets embraces diversity in the microbiome. And then the body uses salts and electrolytes to move the fluids through. And then you have to be able to move because our sponges get stagnant. So like
Exercise.
exercise or like the mini trampoline kind of thing, or like those like vibratory plates that talk about for weight loss. I swear that is all for lymphatic detoxification.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think someone once said that constipations are usually either not enough fiber, not enough water, not enough exercise.
or buried emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Buried
People will hold
emotions
on to
don't always go
stuff they don't
away.
need to keep, they can't let go of.
I see that in body work.
So yeah, I mean you're kind of just going back to the like moving. I mean there's like these osmotic laxatives like magnesium falls in that category. Miralax would fall in that category. They just pull water into the colon, and then there's the stimulant laxatives like Cascara, Aloe, Senna, which are basically kind of irritate the wall of the colon a little bit to get them to contract more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, then
And
there's
those
kind
are
of
the ones you don't use if you're pregnant because you don't want to contract
right. You know, the
muscles.
uterus
Yeah.
like it can have reflux to the uterus, and then there's kind of stool softeners. I mean, there's prescription ones or over the counter like DocuSafe, but then there's also like prunes, prune juice, raisins, even like craisins. Some of those dried fruits and apricots and just like banana even can have a little bit. Sometimes it can go one way or the other, but yeah, and I do think yeah, the people who have the healthiest microbiomes when they test are usually people who are eating a wide variety of plants and also some fermented foods regularly too.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha teas, yogurts, kefir, water kefir, daily probiotic pills, which you kind of rotate around different ones. I think is kind of makes you that gives you the healthiest chance. If your microbiome is wide and diverse, you have more tools in your tool belt essentially to fight back against
Hmm.
some of these like, modern exposures.
And if you do little fermented foods and you feel terrible, get bloated right away and just feel
Mhm.
bad, that's a thing. So stop and work more on the elimination aspect. Not everyone tolerates fermented foods, and we're
I
we're
remember someone
ten.
was like starting with like a half a teaspoon of sauerkraut juice or something, just like the
Mhm.
tiniest little amount, and build up over
Mhm.
time.
Have people do like one probiotic a week, like just kind of
Yeah, or
drip
even
it
open the
in.
capsule and like use a part of a capsule, like
Mhm.
so. Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's that kind of concept of SIBO, is this bacterial overgrowth, and that can be another problem that sometimes that usually
Well, it's
requires
a problem
some
for
more
lots of
intervention.
us.
Yeah, it's a common issue now,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a complicated process with some steps to take to get it balanced back.
But in the big picture, I'd like to really oversimplify this. I
Hmm.
mean, so like we've kind of pruned our gut to be really good at digesting junk food, but not actually like real food. How it just as a culture.
Yeah,
And so when you start to go back to real food, SIBO is a common issue for people, small intestinal bowel overgrowth. And so the bacteria, there's more bacteria, like the small intestine is jam packed with life when it's supposed to be relatively low. And then the fermented, and then the amount of microbial life in the colon is actually stripped down when it's supposed to be higher. So it's kind of like small, there's an imbalance there. And in the big picture, you're trying to rebalance that, lower the amount of excessive microbe activity in the small intestine, and promote good bacteria in the large intestine and get movement happening through the whole thing. Just back to the movement.
so going back one step, like one thing I think that is important, probably when anyone's detoxing, we want to support these processes of elimination, but we also want to lower the intake of new things as much as we can, lower our exposures. So eating more organic foods,
Yeah.
especially like organic meat and dairy and eggs, I think become even more important than specifically just organic fruits and veggies because animals concentrate these toxins as they moves up the food chain. Butters, yeah, especially fats like dairy fat stuff like butter, whole milk, creams, stuff like that. That can really concentrate like pesticides, herbicides, things like that that are in the plants that those
I think
animals are eating.
butter is the number one thing to go organic on.
Yeah, and it tastes better too.
What? Oh
Not
yeah.
organic, but anyways, and it is a little more expensive, obviously, but it's come down quite a bit compared to how it used to be. I feel like the gap between non-organic and organic is smaller than it used to be
Yes, it
because
is
it's more
smaller.
it's consumer driven. As more people want these things,
Makes
they get
people
more on the
wonder if it's
market.
just a lie.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
not. I think there are standards. Just put those labels on it that they have to go through certain inspection processes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you want to think,
That's
and
just a signature.
yeah, we're gonna believe that we're
Okay,
good.
okay,
I mean, I
okay.
guess, perfect world, we're growing all our own food. We know exactly where it's coming from. We have our own animals and plants and have a farm. And
It doesn't sound so perfect though, because that is so many chores.
it's a lot of work.
Like, yeah. Okay.
That's when you need 15 kids and put them all to work on the farm.
That still sounds like a lot.
That's a lot of people.
Um, so
So,
there's this kind of like clean 15 and dirty dozen. These are two things the Environmental Working Group puts out the of each year. And so we're going to have the new ones will be released in a couple weeks for 2025. But the dirty dozen is the most toxic dozen produce pieces out in our market. And then the clean 15 is the least toxic produce pieces out in the market. And so it's kind of like if you're going to choose where to put your money, the dirty dozen is what you want to buy organic, and the clean 15, it's okay to do conventional because you'll see a themes in this. The clean 15 are tend to be things you do not eat the peel of. So it's like
just
the
throw away the
banana
peel.
is there and the avocado is there. And it's like you don't eat the peel. And then the things that you do eat the peel of, like apples and strawberries, they tend to be more on that dirty dozen, but they'll see shifts.
So it hasn't really changed the last couple of years. So the Dirty Dozen, the 12 worst: strawberries, spinach, kale, collard, mustard greens, grapes, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, bell peppers, hot peppers, cherries, and green beans are the ones. And again, you eat all those skins generally, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have pesticides that often those residues will remain on the plant.
And I have, while we're riffing here, I have known of people. So, what you can do a vegetable wash, like a spoonful of white vinegar in a gallon of water, and like some people will do produce washes to help wash off this residue. Like if you're
Hmm.
not going to buy either local produce or conventional produce, but giving it like a vegetable wash, it's usually just a very dilute vinegar, um, and then rinsing that. Don't take the It makes the vegetables taste better, and there's an idea that you're kind of breaking up some of that residual stuff so you're not ingesting it.
And I think, other exposures, drinking water, having sure you drink filtered water or spring waters.
Yeah, and we really do need filtered water. You want to think it's not, but there's things added to the water to make it taste better,
Like
which doesn't
chlorine
mean they're taking away the
fluorides
junk.
and stuff too, which are in there.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
there's even, I mean, there was one study that was like oral contraceptives and antidepressant remnants were found in our tap water. Like, yeah, just no.
Especially if you're drinking, yeah, if you're in an area where they get most of the drinking water from surface standing water, that often has a lot more stuff kind of gets recycled back into it because you're
Nasty. No.
downstream from other people's stuff. So like if you have, yeah, deep water, aquifer, spring water, stuff like that often is a much better choice. And then air is another place you can get exposed. So having air filters in your home, good like air, HEPA filters, I think can help. It's hard to control the outdoor exposures to air, unless and you can choose a little bit where you live to some extent, but most of us can't just pick up and move. But yeah, you don't want to live next to a big factory if you can help it. But also, yeah, having you can control your indoor airspace to some capacity by using filtration, things like that.
And if you live near a golf course, they tend to be higher demographic neighborhoods, but they're actually really, really toxic. And so if you are someone who is fortunate enough to live close to the beautiful green um, golf course, please, for your own health, like yearly, I don't just reach out, but like yearly greens, kind of taking like a green powdered green product to support your mitochondria and releasing the glyphosates that you're getting exposed to is a very good thing. Um, I was actually going to say something else before.
Mm. So it's yeah, it's basically food, air, water. We get exposed to some like like more in the air, like around cars and exhausts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not
If you live within like a mile of a freeway, there was a study done that like the fertility rates plummet. Like if you grew up, your formative years were done, living your within a mile of the freeway, which is always like, oh,
yeah,
but
that does hurt.
you can do something about it.
Sure.
We can do something about it. We can wash it off.
And then
We
there,
have to.
yeah. So we have the bowels we talked about supporting. How would you support the lungs, kidneys, and skin? What can you do for those things
Well,
to help with elimination?
um, and then I'll like once you can't do anything until the bowel's open. But then once the bowel's open, you can do like kidney, liver, gallbladder, you can all the other organ systems you can start targeting.
Like using herbs, nutrients, saying for those things.
Yeah, there's liver, there's nutrient cleanses, even like something as simple as turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory. Um, when someone takes on a detox, I like to think about your cells to repair and detox. They have a higher protein standard. So it's hard for your body to detox and eliminate this stuff if you're undernourished from a protein perspective, and also all of the micronutrients, so the antioxidants. So generally there is a kind of all-in-one, not all in one, but you really want to be focused on high levels of minerals, because that's your body will use a mineral compound to replace every metal compound. Like when your little cell spits off an aluminum, you use a magnesium to transfer that kind of thing. So you need high minerals, you need good nutrition, you need your protein, you need your fluids, you need your movement. And then also I would recommend, if you're going, there's different types of detoxification. I just have to say that
Yeah.
too. Like we poop every day, we hopefully, right? But then sometimes there's like people will clear their schedule and take a week or 10 days to do like a targeted detox, which is what I think of around like the new year or the fall. It's actually, I think, hard to detox in the dead of winter or the height of summer. It's like the transition shifts, the springs and the falls. Our bodies are naturally going through this transformation detox process. So sometimes when people, a sign that you need to do detox is people will get hit with hay fever, allergies in the spring. That usually your body is showing you have signs of needing to do some elimination. And in the fall, same kind of thing. Get sick every fall. Like your body is kind of showing you signs you could use some detoxification. The spring season, so if you detox in the winter, I still like it because it's on the calendar and it's front of mind and it's January and just do it. But at the same time, you don't want to get too cold all the time. It's like you can't do smoothies all the time. So it's more teas.
Yeah.
It's more taking a moment. If you're going to set apart time that you're going to detox, I would also set apart time of watching what goes into your mind and media, that you're in kind of taking a moment to like to journal, or to just, if you're finding yourself just doom scrolling or putting way too much time into devices, like pause, push back, and get a chance to kind of, as you're letting go of the old, embrace what is coming in is a positive thing.
So going back, kidneys, basically lots of water. What else can you do to help support your kidneys?
Well, people will use herbs like dandelion root, lemon water. I mean, just even as simple as lemon water it does this whole pH thing where it shifts. And so your body releases more cortisol hormone when you're drinking lemon water. So people will talk about
Vitamin
just,
C can do some of that as well too, kind of acidifying the urine a little bit.
so when I'm doing more of like A simple detox approach would be like a mineral complex and a vitamin C and make sure you're pooping and then adding in some greens to make sure you have your
Mm.
micronutrition, with a solid amount of protein. Even if you take those just because they're good for you and you don't call it a detox, your body's going to be doing that. It's just the body's always trying to get better. Things that can hinder people from detox is like that if you know you're someone that's just like super rebellious, because this is what I can do a lot, and if I tell myself I'm on a detox and all I'm doing is like looking to sabotage myself, so instead, sometimes what I'll do is I'll play this game with myself and I'm like, no, I'm not on a detox. I am just simply trying new products to see how they go with my body. And as long as I'm just trying new products and being curious about how that goes, that side of me that wants to sabotage doesn't show up. I'll like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. But if I'm like, hey, let's detox, man, 24 hours in, I'm like, let's not. So,
Let's retox.
let's retox. And I'm not, yeah,
Yeah, the
retox.
retox can be rough.
Oh,
So we don't want to do retox.
it's this methylation issue. People
Mm.
have different genetics. And
True.
so when you have, and you are not the weirdo with methylation issues. Probably two-thirds of humans have some sort of genetic variance. And the more we study, the more we find out, the more we realize all of us have something. But the liver has a hard time going from phase one to phase two detoxification. So you take a molecule, it has to do one process to like turn it halfway off, then it gets transported, then it gets removed all the way, then it gets spit out in the bowel, then it gets pooped out. That genetic piece of taking the molecule and like deactivating it part way, that is a genetic issue, or that happens through our gene sequencing. And so in our livers is where this is happening. And some people do not have full capacity to do that unless they're supported with
Mm.
greens. And so like chard and everything, all the green vegetables.
Spirulina.
And so so that's why greens are very, very detoxifying, no matter what. They're so wonderful. But then sometimes people will take in supplements like specific forms of B vitamins. And the big picture is we started fortifying like fake inferior junky types of B vitamins into our grains. And that has actually probably challenged us more than relieved us from nutrient deficiencies because not every body uses those types of fortified grains and actually can make it worse for people.
Some of this around folic acid metabolism gets really interesting, where the different variants people can do, where some people really can't use straight up folic acid effectively, and they need the methylated
Mm-hmm.
forms, the MTHF
And
forms.
and I am not an expert on this. The guru on Ben Lynch, what he has he has put in countless hours, and we went to school with him, and he was always just studying in the corner. And I really appreciate someone who's like put their Dr. Ben Lynch has shed light and moved this area of medicine forward, which is I appreciate because we need to know how to detoxify. But then even when he started his work, he was all about supporting and that like to stay on these detox. His thing is you synchronize the biochemical pathways to be efficient, and then people start to feel better. But his first thought was start with supplements and just maintain the supplementation. And then about 5, 6 years ago, the tune changed a little bit. No, you want to use supplementation to make to synchronize the efficiency of the biochemical elimination processes, and then pull back and just feed yourself with like food-based, whole food, plant-based nutrition. Because sometimes we isolate our nutrients, and then we'll give like one and one and one instead of everything in the spectrum that would be in spinach or that would be in an apple. And so we
Right.
start causing our own problems biochemically because we're isolating these different nutrients and then throwing them individually. The body has never really dealt with nutrition in that style. Prior to the last handful of decades, all of our nutrition was from food. We didn't have these lab synthesized, unique individual compounds that I'm sure are really removed from how they would be found in a blueberry. So
Hmm.
we've kind of, in many capacities, we've sort of created our own problems, but then at the same time, that also means that the solutions are already there, and the solutions could be simpler than we realize, but the process of eliminating sleeping, resting, and listening within. And I think every single person on this planet would do better with a little detoxification. But you
Mhm.
can't detoxify if you're living in the middle of the toxic soup right then, right there. So you got to get yourself safe first.
Mhm.
Um,
The hierarchy of needs kind of concept. Yeah, if you're not safe, can't really focus on much else. You're just gonna be living in that chaos.
hmm So sometimes if people want to do a detox and if they're not quite there yet, start with just nutrition. Let their cells feel safe. Then you can go on to the detoxification, you know.
Got it. Um, then we didn't talk about skin and lungs. Is there anything you can do
Oh,
specifically for those?
well, like breath work, sometimes we do like deeper breathing, we kind of run around with our diaphragms held and only breathing in the top 20% of our lungs and having that like deep belly breath work. Not putting junk into your lungs, like different, recreational and lifestyle habits.
Yeah, stuff like
Smoking,
yeah, smoking and vaping. Vaping is really because that's a direct, basically straight path to your bloodstream right through your lungs. So
hmm
it's like we don't. There's no regulation of that vaping industry at all. So they can put whatever they want. There's some of those like flavor chemicals too could be causing some serious problems that we just don't know about until
It's
yeah,
fine.
it's fine.
Yeah, I know.
That's totally
Like,
fine.
right. Like, we'll figure it. So, like, we're talking about chemicals that were, these forever chemicals, Teflon, say, from the exposed in the 80s, and we're talking about in 2024. I'm curious what we're going to be talking about later. We'll be
Hmm.
like, oh,
Yeah.
that was a bad thing.
Actually, it was better to smoke cigarettes than vape. Potentially,
Well,
we,
like that BPA, BPS.
oh yeah, we got yeah, BPA made the news in hard plastics like Nalgene's, and it's like we'll get rid of that. And then some people are like, actually, what they replaced it with BPS is that could be even worse.
It's
And
like 1,000 times more toxic and blah. It's like,
so,
oh no, can't
yeah,
go back to glass, go back to metal.
better living through chemistry has not really worked out so well for us.
We wish.
And then skin detox. What kind of stuff can you do there?
Ooh, dry brushing, lymph kind of stuff. Hot, cold, sauna.
Sweating.
Especially now, if you're gonna detox in the winter, do it with a sauna. That you just don't want to expel all the heat out of the body from like a balance perspective.
Getting a sweat on is
Getting a
really
sweat on
healthy,
is very good.
and then rinse it off after.
Rinse it off after. The sweat that comes out of your human sponge here is very concentrated in microplastics. Just so when you get all sweaty in a sauna, rinse that. Do that cold plunge, do that cold rinse, and then go back into the sauna. You go back and forth. The things that you want to watch out for is dehydration. And if people get really dehydrated, putting a pinch of salt under your tongue with drinking water really helps to hydrate someone easier. And then also go slow. You don't need to do really high heat saunas, but you just want to get a nice sweat. Now, some people don't sweat very much. Some people just don't really get sweaty. It is a sign of kind of chronic, like it can be a couple things, but like when our nervous systems are stressed, we kind of like it takes us a minute to calm down. So a lot of people are kind of walking around with like different phases of like PTSD stuff. And so it is harder for a chronically stressed nervous system to sweat. On the other hand, if you encourage your body to sweat, you feel better. And so it's actually a good process for the body as
Mm,
long as you're not dehydrating.
sure.
Else?
And then how often do
Skin.
you
How else would you detox skin? Loofah,
exfoliation? Yeah.
exfoliation.
Yeah.
We wear, I mean, depending on what you're sweating in, but like we wear plastic clothes all the time.
Polyesters
We
and
pay, as a teenage mom, I pay way too much for plastic leggings of certain name brands that I know that my children are just absorbing plastics right into their skin and
yeah,
it
natural
bothers me.
fibers are so much better.
And then, yeah, and then even uh, the future grandbabies, I tell you. And
Mhm.
then another thing is your sleep environment. watching that you're like electrically, like not having your modem, and devices within 6 feet around you because of their Wi-Fi that they bring. Like having a bubble where you're kind of protected and safe and calm for your nervous system, because your nervous system cues this stuff and your immune system cues this stuff even if you're not consciously aware of it. Our
Mm.
bodies are very, very, very amazing and special. I love my body. I
You,
think the human is so cool.
you kind of hinted at this, but how often do you think someone should do like a specific targeted detox where they're focusing on supporting those systems of elimination? What would be an optimal and
Yeah,
realistic goals for people?
right. I mean, I think twice a year is pretty peachy, wonderful. Um, some people are real sick, and so it's like they're detoxing for a month and then pausing for 2 months and then trying it for another, and like, but that's when they're not living, they are living their best life, but their health is interfering with them living their life. And so it's like we're trying to
Mm.
help get them out of that state. As a maintenance, twice a week, twice a year is pretty good. But I think in this day and age, so scratch all that. I think this day and age, we need some sort of gentle support for detoxification every single day, especially when we're talking about aluminum
Mm.
exposures, like cilantro, something simple as cilantro, something simple as like a mineral complex, a mineral blend,
Some
magnesium,
greens,
like
maybe
making
a
sure,
milk thistle
yeah.
or
Oh, milk
artichoke.
thistle is so wonderful.
Mm.
Milk thistle helps your liver completely regrow. I mean,
Mm.
it's amazing.
Yeah, just like a liver support formula. It has like some different herbs and stuff.
Oh yeah, like the SAT formula is really
I
nice.
like
It's
that. It's just
silymarin,
it's just yeah, milk
artichoke,
thistle,
turmeric.
artichoke. Yeah, just those three things.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah.
But having that, like, I really, it's like breathing. We need a little bit of support each and every day, but it could be as simple as good nutrients because your body needs nutrients to release. And then you take on a bigger, more seasonal detox,
Hmm.
once or twice a year. Um, yeah.
Last thing I just kind of want to mention, there's kind of a special case is heavy metal toxicity. If you get exposed,
Isn't that special?
well, it kind of is.
You
People,
mean
if
it's
you're, yeah, certain exposures, the body just has a really hard time getting rid of, like mercury, arsenic, cadmium, lead.
I mean,
Kind
it's special to get it out. That is,
yeah,
yes, it's absolutely special to get out. Is it special to be exposed to? I
no,
don't know.
I
I
think
think it's
yeah,
kind of
it's,
ubiquitous.
yeah, it's around us.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, lead was a bigger issue in the 70s. It's gotten less so as it become cognizant of all the toxic elements of lead. So they got, I mean, there are still lead pipes out there. That whole Flint, Michigan crisis was based off of that. There was leaded gasoline until the early 80s. So that was being, people
Hmm.
breathing lead. There's chemical processes.
Well, and even women of a certain age, so our bones are our mineral stores for our body.
Mm.
And when you're in your youth, you're building, ideally, you're taking in high minerals, and so your bones are building. And then about early 20s, you shift, and then when your body needs extra calcium, it takes it from your bones. So then women older, then we have an issue, and men too, but we have an issue with osteoporosis in this country, and so in the world. But osteoporosis, often the when the calcium and the minerals are coming off the bones are also releasing lead,
Stored lead
stored lead that these
from the
children were
child.
exposed to in
Yeah.
childhood.
And there's
So,
lead paints too, lead different. Yeah, but they got
so
cognizant in
there's
the
a lot of
70s and
high lead
80s,
level.
got that out. So hopefully the next generations won't have as big of an exposure as we're not out there. Mercury too, we kind of figured out was problematic. We still can get mercury exposures from like ocean fish and stuff,
And flu shots.
tuna. Yeah, they pretty much pulled all the mercury out of all of the vaccines except for the flu shot. Still uses some mercury as a preservative in that. Dental metal fillings is a mercury exposure, although now they've kind of moved away from those for the most part, but some people still have a
But the
lot in their
silver
mouth.
fillings,
Yeah,
yeah.
now it's like they're using porcelains and ceramics and things like that, which are less problematic for that. There's issues with arsenic, cadmium. So yeah, finding out if your lead levels, there's urine tests are usually the best way to do that. Hair somewhat can tell, blood too if you're getting acute exposures. But yeah, the best probably is a urine test and taking a urine test, but both before and after taking some kind of agent that binds metals and pulls it out of the body. So, the,
Which is different than binders that we were talking about the bile. Just,
right. So there's certain agents called chelating agents that bind
mhm.
metals. There's some that are over the counter, like oral. There's some that are IV can only be a way to do that. So it is kind of a specialized whole system of medicine. I did extra
Mhm.
training in it decades ago, and yeah, it's definitely a whole system of how to get this stuff out if you think you've been exposed, which we probably all have. But if someone's having a lot of neurological issues, a lot of autoimmune issues, it may be worth even like stuff like
Well, spike proteins, like EDTA is helping to release the spike protein stuff and the
yeah, for long
polymers,
COVID kind of
microplastics.
symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, neurological stuff, even like ADHD sometimes with kids, there's
Mm.
can be a heavy metal component there. So yeah, it does usually require a consultation to speak with a doctor about the best way to follow, get that evaluated to see if that is an issue. But there are tests out there that can be done, and then ways to get it out of your body if you're having some unusual, symptoms, especially neurological.
And I don't know where this will go, and I don't mean to be whatever, but I listened to a podcast this week, and this woman was showing up. Doctor's Data is a laboratory that will analyze urine for heavy metal, and so as practitioners, when we work with people, we'll send off samples and see what's going on. And then we target an approach, and then we recheck to see how the metals are getting dumped out of the body, right? So, but what she did do is a different practitioner was talking on this podcast, and she was evaluating these spray zeolite products, and
Mm.
we use one, but it's been third party tested, yada da da da. But there is a multi-level there's a company out there, direct sales company, that is targeting these sprays. The challenge is when it was analyzed, it was shown to have a lot of metals in it.
Mm.
So we need a
Some
little
supplements
more
can be
like,
problematic.
yeah, the supplements can be problematic.
Especially stuff coming from China and India. There's been known to have some heavy metal burdens.
And
What?
you'd have no way to know without like smelling it, tasting it, you
Yeah,
know?
no, it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a yeah, not to freak people out, but but this is an area that kind of can be expanded and expanded and expanded and kind of make you go crazy thinking about it. So at some point, we do have to live in this world that we're surrounded in. We can't live in a bubble and isolate ourselves. So I think what it comes to down for me is, okay, how can we limit our exposures, and then how can we support our body to be able to function in spite of the exposures in its best optimal way without becoming a total recluse living in
Hmm.
Antarctica and eating only
Hmm.
you know perfectly organic grown. Those are not realistic options for most people out there to do, so
Well,
we have
and
to kind
even
of
if you
find.
try, you kill yourself with the neurotic stress of trying. So there is a bona
Yeah,
fide balance in
it
it
can
all.
definitely go too far for sure, and I have seen people who become kind of obsessed and crazy over these concepts, and it's like, whoa, at some point, yeah, it becomes a negative, a net negative instead of a positive factor. So there's a balance piece here. We always have to kind of find ways to live our optimal life in balance with our possibilities, but it's challenging.
It is. But I think there's a piece of like, you don't have to make yourself crazy about it. It is not up to you what's going on in your mind to manage and control everything that's going out. Like, pause. Your body is very, very wise, very, very smart, and it's doing things on our behalf all the time. And so we can kind of start gently. The heavy metal thing is important. We need to do some more heavy metal releases. But you can't do that unless
Other
you're
systems
pooping
are
and
working
peeing
well.
and you're sleeping. But then also a lot of the neurologic issues we're having in this culture and in people, it's the neurologic system is very sensitive to metals, and the immune system is very sensitive to metals. The little cells in the immune system communicate through radio frequencies. So when we're accrued with metal particulates in our body, the radio frequencies, the electrical impulses get skewed, and we start to get more of the negative effects of electro radio wave exposures out in the world.
Mm.
So by releasing the metals out of us, we are much more resilient to the stress of Wi-Fi, to the stress of all the 5G stuff, to, whatever. Our immune systems are more balanced when we release metals out of them. This is anyone who has helped, like in the autism work and like functional work to recovering and helping the brain, release the metals. These metals cause a lot of neuroinflammation, and then using things like cell membrane support, good oils, omega oils, phosphatidylcholine, that kind of thing helps to the cell membranes to calm down and release that
Acid.
alpha lipoic acid, release the neuroinflammation. So I think heavy metal toxicity really plays into how the nervous system and the immune system are functioning.
Mm, true.
And we're just such brilliant, alive pieces of art.
It's quite amazing.
It is.
In
And
spite of all
special knowledge.
Yeah, in spite of like how potentially sick we could be, most of us are still kind of getting up and going along. Our bodies are pretty remarkable in their ability to, in spite of recurring injuries and exposures, our bodies are able to deal with most of it and keep us going.
Talk a little bit about exposures through like imaging and pharmaceutical exposures.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to speak?
You too.
What's
gadolinium?
Yeah, so gadolinium is one that I've been more on my radar over the years because it's from MRI exposures. When they do MRI contrast, they use this form of a heavy metal called gadolinium as a contrast agent so that they can view the MRI images clearer in certain aspects of the body. And sometimes it's needed to really see things, but there are some issues where people are saying that they think that it's causing a lot of health problems because it is concentrated. They've done autopsies of people who've had a lot of MRIs and they have a high levels of this heavy metal deposit in the brain still. Gadolinium gets into the nervous system and potentially causes problems. Some people say it's not a big a deal, but others are saying that it really could be a really big deal. And there's some interesting case reports out there of doctors who had a lot of MRIs had to quit practicing because their brains aren't working clearly any longer. And gadolinium is a hard one to get out of the body. There's not great chelating agents to pull it out of the body, so it is problematic. It's a whole world out there. There's a whole lot of different ways we can go down these pathways, and we do know that there are aluminum exposures in most injectable forms.
21st century.
They use an aluminum as an adjunct to get trigger inflammation to trigger an immune response. And a lot of injectable products that can be problematic for a lot of people. Or preservatives. They use sometimes these things as preservatives, and that can be problematic as well too. So, yeah, it's a whole rabbit hole you can go down and down and down and down for all the different ways we're being exposed through modern medicine, modern living, modern chemistry, petroleum exposure. All these different ways it's in the environment, and so I do think it really comes down to you can't avoid it altogether. You can try to limit your exposures as much as you can, especially in your personal environment, your personal food choices, and then you finding ways to support the body so we can push out those things that we're inevitably going to get exposed to. It's kind of where it comes down to me, I think, of detox. Any final thoughts on this topic?
Detoxing. We all need to learn how to let it go.
It's
part of growth.
And try not to have too much toxic people in your life, where they add to your toxic burden.
Absolutely.
There's sort of a cup theory that because the cup gets full, every little thing keeps adding, and at some point you can overflow, and that's when illness will start coming on board. So if we can keep the cup from keep a balance in and out, so we're not going to ever hit that overflow point where it's hard to cross. There's a lot more work needed to get back. So if you can focus on the stuff while you're healthy, it's much better.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. I hope you're all having a great day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And we look forward to talking to you next Wednesday. We'll be back. I think we're talking about microbiome next week.
Oh.
So.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Have a good week, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.